Good evening, everyone. Are we getting those ones? We are just about ready to start. Okay, so we are getting started. We know today we had the paper 2 for this season, this May-June 2024 for human and social biology. I hope that everyone did have a good exam. I hope you were able to finish. I hope that no one left anything blank on the paper. So we are going to take a look and see how the paper should have gone. Tentative answers, it's not the full complete list, but we want to look at it. So we are starting with section A of the paper. And let's see what we had in section A. And just looking at the question, we can see that section A is starting off with a section B question. Yeah, so let's read. This is not the best version of the paper, but that will improve later on. It's still very early for CXC. And by the way, quick fact, today is the halfway point in the CXC exams. So we are halfway there. You have just about 3 more weeks of exams, and then this May-June 2024 exam season for CXC will be finished. So let's jump into question 1 and see what they have for us. Justin is an amateur boxer. His trainer advises him that in order to increase his energy levels, he should consume a diet that contains more complex carbohydrates, such as sweet potato and cassava, which are rich in starch. Name the tests that Justin should use to determine the presence of starch in his diet, and state the color of the precipitate formed if starch is present. And straight away, they're already telling you the answer. They're saying you're testing for starch. So it is a starch test. So you may know it also as an iodine test. And I feel I could do some writing. The starch test, iodine test. And the precipitate is blue-black, or meaning the color change that you are looking for is blue-black. Right? So that is 1 mark for each answer. So I hope persons would have gotten that very quickly. And I am seeing some in the chat, so we are on the right track so far. Identify 2 foods that are rich in starch other than sweet potato and cassava. And it has so many. You could have picked any other ground foods. The list is really, really large, especially everyone is from different Caribbean countries. They might know different ones that they want to put. But I will go with Irish potato, Edos. You could go with some others. Some persons might want dasheen roots, etc. You could go with anyone. Some saying yam, that's good. Some have rice, nice. So you just wanted something rich in starch. Yeah. State which 2 of the following foods Justin would consume for growth and repair of his muscle tissue. If we're talking growth and repair and muscle tissues, we are talking about proteins. So which 2 of these has proteins? And it will be chicken and peas, or chicken and lentil peas. Chicken and lentil peas, 2 marks. So persons should keep track of their marks to see how they are doing. The whole paper is out of 90, 50, 15 marks for each question. So do keep track of your marks to see how you are scoring so that you know what the outcome is. And I hope very much so that your outcome would be a 1, because we are looking forward to that, getting those 1s. Table 1 shows the number of children in hundreds who suffer from nutritional deficiency diseases in 2 countries, country X and country Y. And if you did enough past papers, this table will look very familiar to you. It is in another past paper. The number of children suffering from nutritional deficiency. So we have the diseases here. Marasm, Kawashiko, depending on how you pronounce it, night blindness, rickets. So 4 diseases, these will go on your x-axis. So the next question asks you to draw a graph in the space provided. It's a bar graph. They told you that up front. So you would have 8 bars on the graph. Yeah, 8 bars, 4 for each country, country X and country Y. And you would have done some kind of key to identify the difference between country X diseases and country Y diseases. All right, we're not going to draw the bar graph, but they did provide you with space. So I know everyone pulled out their rulers and their pencils to draw this bar graph. And your highest bar would have gone up to 70 for country X. And your lowest bar was also country X at 20. All right. So what does it say? From your graph, identify the country which had the higher incidence of both. Right? So both means we could simply add these together. Marazam and Kawashiko, you could add them together and see which one comes out higher. But if you did the graph, you would automatically see that country X is standing out. All right? Country X is standing out. So, and I'm seeing persons saying country X, so they know what they're doing. From your graph, identify the country which had the lower incidence of diseases overall. It would be funny if they ask you and the answer is country Y. So we know funny if they ask you and the answer is country X as well. So obviously, if it's just 2 countries, we know the answer will be the opposite or the other country, which is Y. Country Y. Yeah? State the major nutrient that is lacking in the diets of the children in country X and the major micronutrient that is lacking in the diet of children in country Y. Now pay attention to these words in bold. They say major micronutrient. Pay attention, the micronutrient. So if we're looking at these diseases, MASM is a deficiency in carbohydrates or the fuels for your body, which is carbohydrates, fats, proteins, in that order. Kwashiorkor is protein deficiency, but those are not micronutrients. So these two diseases are out. The diseases that they are asking you to talk about is night blindness and rickets. And night blindness is a deficiency in vitamin A, and rickets is a deficiency in vitamin D. So country X has more night blindness than rickets. So that is a vitamin A, right? And country Y has more rickets, which is a vitamin D. All right? So they weren't asking you about the top 2 performing diseases. They were asking you about micronutrients. Micronutrients, and the vitamins are micronutrients. I hope no one got tricked with that. All right? No one should have gotten tricked with that. So let's continue on. I am watching the chat to see if I put protein, would I get it right? No, you would not. Someone said they put vitamin K. Right? You have to use the information that they give you. So let's wrap up this question. Suggest one disease that could develop as a result of overeating. And I'm thinking everyone should get this one mark, because everyone is thinking, oh, you decide to go and eat and get fat and get obese, you have a multitude of diseases that you could get. I hope diabetes is jumping out, a person's coronary heart disease is jumping out, hypertension should be jumping out. So pick one. All right, so there are multiple diseases that you could have put. You could pick one. I could just write diabetes, heart disease, coronary, hypertension. All of that can come from overeating. So you had no reason not to get this answer. All right, and we do these videos to make sure persons stay on the right track. They are meant to encourage you, to support you in your learning, even in your exams. So we would appreciate it very much if you like and subscribe to the channel. And we are going to do videos for the other upcoming HSB exams. Paper 3 is in a couple of days, and we are preparing some paper 3s. So you could look out for that, click that notification bell so you could stay informed. All right, so we are moving on to the next question. This is question 2, and they're talking about living things, and we know that is a section A. That is in section A. So they ask us complete table 2 by inserting the characteristics of life in each definition, right? So for one, they have the ability of an organism to detect and respond to stimuli. That is irritability. That is irritability. Some persons may have put sensitivity. Wonder if they would give you that. They would probably give you sensitivity. Yeah? They might probably give you it, right? Irritability is the perfect answer. The removal of waste products produced by metabolism from the body. This is excretion, not to be confused with ejection. All right? Not to be confused with ejection. And they really do like that. And we see it down here. The removal of undigested waste products from the body. So you know that one is definitely ejection. All right? And the Roman numeral 3, the release of energy from food substances to do work in the body, that is clearly respiration. And this is section A. So this is the foundation. This is where all HSB knowledge starts. So this is marks I know you were obtaining. All right, let's go on. As we continue on, we are looking at this. And seeing this question, I found that the drawings were subpar. I don't know if it's the version I am looking at, but could someone identify for me what B is? Is it that is how it is, or is it scribbled up? And could someone identify for me what B is? Tell me what B is supposed to be. Right? We could kind of figure out what A is. We could see C's muscle fibers, muscle strands, you know. D, all right, we could see the sensory or an axon in that cell. So we know that's from the nervous system, but a neuron. So what is B? What is B? Right? So is it that you alone? That was hard for me, but it just so happens that when we're doing the question, we may not need it. Using letters, labels only, so they're not asking you to identify the stuff, which is good because then we would have been in trouble. Identify the type of tissue that is responsible for movement. Which one is responsible for movement? And I am hoping everyone put the muscle fibers. Everyone should have put C, skeletal muscle, and the type, which one is responsible for protection of body surface, the body surfaces, right? And therein comes A, because A to me is looking at epithelial cells or epithelial tissue, right? Because unless B comes into play, and I'm not really sure what B is, but that's where we are going thus far. Yeah, if we ever decide to figure out what B is, then maybe the answer might change. But for now, we're going with that A represents epithelial cells, right? So skin in play there. Seema is a footballer who notices that she tires easily even after very short practice sessions. She researches possible causes of her fatigue and discovers some interesting facts about certain cell organelles. Organelles are the things inside of cells, the structures inside of cells. Identify the cell organelle in Seema's body, which may not be working adequately and therefore causing her fatigue. So if we are talking about Seema, who is trying to get energy because she is getting tired, we could only be talking about one organelle. We have to be talking about the mitochondria. All right? State the process in which this cell organelle identified above would prevent Seema's fatigue. What needs to happen for Seema not to be short of breath, not to get tired so easily? And she needs to be doing respiration, but which type of respiration? Is it aerobic, anaerobic? So make sure, and I hope persons put that they are talking about aerobic respiration. That's the one that will prevent you from getting tired. Anaerobic respiration will eventually lead her to getting tired. Yeah? So she needs to be doing aerobic respiration. Write in words the equation that describes the process stated. And this is, they ask you to write it in words. And I always tell students, you have to know this equation in words and in chemicals. Yeah, in words and in chemicals. So you just write in the equation for respiration, and they ask you for words. So it's glucose and oxygen to generate carbon dioxide, water, and energy. And energy in biological systems is ATP. All right. So let's continue on. Seeing someone say they left something blank. All right, all right. Hopefully we make back up those marks elsewhere. So Seema decides to visit the doctor to be tested to determine the cause of her fatigue. The doctor indicates that her fatigue is not caused by a malfunctioning cell organelle, but is the result of a mineral deficiency in her diet. Suggests the disease that Seema is likely suffering from and state what is occurring in her body as a result of the disease. What disease is that? What disease is that Seema is? Is everyone thinking anemia? I hope that is the answer that everyone is thinking. And anemia is the lack of iron. Iron as in Fe, iron, right? And the iron is needed for hemoglobin, right? Sickle cell, a lack of iron. If you put a lack of iron, you could put deficiency, anemia. Yes, you would get a marks. 1 mark for the name of the disease, 1 mark for the suggested reason or state what is occurring. All right. So iron is required for hemoglobin, which she is not making plenty. All right, without the iron, she's not making plenty hemoglobin, which means she's not making plenty red blood cells, and it spirals, right? Someone is saying that they put low iron. That's okay, right? That's okay. Deficiency means lacking, right? So if you put low iron, you will still get him. The human body consists of several organs and organ systems. Identify one organ in the body which belongs to 2 different organ systems and state the names of the 2 organ systems. Instantly, it jumps into my mind that they're probably thinking the easiest one is the lungs. Simplest, easiest one, the lungs. So I will use that one. There are other organs. There are other organs, but the simplest one, I don't want to think too hard, neither do you. You will press for time in the exam, so I hope persons put lungs. If you did use other organs, you need to say what they were for. All right? So if you did use the kidney or other organs, you need to say the systems that they were involved with, right? It's 3 marks, 2 marks for the organ systems, 1 mark for identifying the organ. All right. So that's another 15 marks wrapped up with this second question. So 30 marks on so far. I hope everyone is keeping track of their marks. Let's continue on to question number 3. Define the term slightly out of define the term health according to the World Health Organization. And the World Health Organization has 3 things that you need to have in health. You must be physically competent, you must be mentally competent, and you must be socially competent. All right? So if you do not have all those 3 things, then you don't fit into the World Health Organization definition. All right. So you must, in your answer, you must have, well, I just rattle off the actual definition here. A state of complete physical, mental, and social. Once you have those 3, you will get the marks. Identify by circling the 2 diseases in the list below. Let me kind of get circle here, which are classified as non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases, meaning diseases which cannot be passed on. All right, and what are persons thinking? What are persons thinking? the cancer, I hope the other one that person is thinking is hypertension. All right. You can't spread those diseases. You can't touch somebody and give them the disease, right? So I hope you got those 2 marks there. That's easy marks, easy marks. Right. There are concerns about, and I hope persons realizing this question is from section of diseases, section D. There are concerns about increasing global incidence of viral disease, monkeypox, and whatever is the prevailing thing in society. We always see it in the question, in the exam, right? Infected persons will experience the following signs and symptoms. From the list above, identify one sign and one symptom experienced by a person who is suffering from monkeypox. Now, a sign is something somebody else could detect, right? A symptom, you alone could experience it. So straight away, we could class these up, right? And you just need one for each. So there is more than one. So I hope persons put it out correctly, right? I hope persons put it out correctly. So I am just going to give you all, right? I'm just going to give you all. Tell me. I seen someone said they put rash and headache. So the rash is the sign, the headache is the symptom. Nice, nice. You will get the marks. Somebody put weakness and fatigue. Those signs and symptoms were not there. So if you put weakness and fatigue, you will not get marks. You will not get marks. You have to use what they gave you. You have to use what they gave you. All right? Explain 2 ways in which COVID-19 pandemic has impacted societies and economies in the Caribbean. And considering we all lived through the pandemic, we very much should know this. So you just had to explain it out to get your marks. So you had to do 2 explanations. So you could have talked about persons were getting fired in the pandemic. Do you all remember that? Some teachers actually got fired and everything in different places. And we are in the Caribbean. We literally had teachers getting fired, right? So jobs, persons were losing jobs. Some families, the breadwinner, the person who is making the money for the family died, right? That will damage a family economically for sure if the breadwinner dies. Schools were closed, yeah? Because remember they said impacted societies and economies in the Caribbean. School is a societal good. Schools closed down. There was one point in time, persons were doing online schooling, right? So easy marks across the gap. How are we faring now that we are just about to wrap up the 3rd question? How are our marks looking? I hope persons are keeping track. Right? I hope persons are keeping track. HIV is transmitted primarily through sexual contact or bodily fluids. Explain 2 ways in which individuals may reduce their risk of contracting HIV. What they should do, right? What they should do. We have abstinence from sexual intercourse. What about protected sex, meaning using the use of condoms, because condoms prevent against the spread of HIV/AIDS. All right. So you could have put that. Remember, you don't want Any mothers giving birth to breastfeed who are HIV infected, you don't want them breastfeeding, right? There are a multitude of answers, and you just have to explain. All right, you just have to explain. I hope no one just wrote abstinence from, well, if you did write abstinence from sexual intercourse, that's enough explanation there. Yeah. State why antibiotics cannot be used to treat HIV infections. Someone said no sharing of needles. That's correct. All needles are disposable, right? There are no needles to be reused. All of them are disposable. Someone said, eat this HSB like bread and butter. I like that. I like that. All right. Get tested before intercourse. Yes, that is one. That is one. Getting tested or knowing your status, that is correct. So to the present question, antibiotics are used to treat bacteria. All right, you're not using antibiotics to treat viruses. So that's another 15 marks. 45 marks done. 45 more to go. All right, so let's go on to question 4. I hope you are keeping track, seeing where it goes. It doesn't have a cure. They never asked you if it had a cure or anything, yeah? They asked you a specific question about use of antibiotics, right? And you had to answer in that way. So this question 4, well, we see a diagram of the heart. So we know this instantly brings to mind the circulatory system. And they ask us to identify the structures of the heart labeled A and the region of the heart labeled B. The structure labeled A, and if we go to A and we see this nice thick looking aorta, I hope that is what persons would have put. And then B is on the left side of the heart, and that's the atrium, the left atrium, right? So B is the left atrium. So some nice marks for us to get there. Describe the function of the structure of the heart labeled C. And if we are making this out correctly, it is pointing to the valves that is going to the pulmonary artery. This is definitely not CXC's best diagram, or maybe it's just the copy that I am looking at. So if it's the pulmonary artery that is it's in front of, the valves are the pulmonary valves, which lead to carry blood to the lungs, right? They serve to prevent backflow. So the ventricles, when they squeeze, and then when the heart relaxes, blood doesn't flow backwards. All right, that's what valves are for, to prevent backflow. State the region of the heart in which a pacemaker is located. The pacemaker is in the sinoatrial node. That is the right atrium. So it's somewhere around here. All right. So if you could show off and put SA node or something, right? But the answer is the atrium, the right atrium. The artificial pacemaker. The artificial pacemaker is many times not in the heart. What they do is they run wires, right? So it might be around near the collarbone, but they run wires that go into the heart to activate when something happens. State the function of the pacemaker. Well, the pacemaker controls the heartbeat, and particularly the kind of control is to increase it, because you don't want your heartbeat dropping too low. So generally they say control or increase the heart rate. All right, so let me check the comments and see how persons are doing. I'm seeing some saying, yes, they got right atrium to regulate and pump blood around the heart. Yes, yeah, so regulate heartbeat, yes. right? So far we going good. 6 marks down for this question 4, and we moving on nicely. Certain countries in the Caribbean have very high incidences of coronary heart disease. Discuss one named factor. One named factor. You could pick anyone which contributes to the development of CHD. You could pick anyone. You could pick alcohol. You could pick fast foods. You could pick lack of exercise. You could pick one. They just ask you for one and ask you to discuss. So you get 1 mark for the thing, and then 3 marks comes from your discussion. So you pick anyone you want. There is multiple or many. You pick one and you write on, right? Lack of exercise. The Caribbean does like to drink plenty alcohol. So we do like fast food as well. So, or foods high in fats and oils. So anyone will get you some marks. Oh, someone even said smoking. Look at it. Look at it. Explain why the walls of the ventricles of the heart may become thicker as a result of CHD. They become thicker because when the walls of the heart is a muscle, cardiac muscle, in fact. So muscles grow or increase in size when they have to do more work. So muscles develop to do more work. Yeah. That reasoning is simple. I mean, you wouldn't have explained it like that. You might have go into some more detail. But yes, muscles develop to do more work. If the heart has to pump more blood, etc., the muscles will accordingly develop. Okay, let's go on. Let's go on. This question is actually a really nice question so far. I think this is the question I like the most from the ones that we have done so far. Suggest 3 approaches that could be used by governments to reduce the incidence of coronary heart disease. Yeah, and this is your opportunity to show off. Anytime you see this word suggest, it means it have more than one correct answer. You could pick them, you could write whatever you want. Well, not whatever you want. Once it makes sense, you write away. You write correct answers, right? Once it makes sense. So I am going with educate the people, provide incentives for healthy food establishment, whether it's tax breaks, tax incentive. You could develop preventative medicine. Many times in the Caribbean, we practice reactive medicine. Yeah. So it's an opportunity to develop preventative medicine, and the list goes on. So it's what you wanted to suggest. And there is another 15 marks. 60 marks down. All right, 60 marks down. How are we faring? Are we getting those ones so far? Are we on track for the ones? Tell me. Is type 1. So let me see what grades we thinking so far. Person's on track for the ones. All right. I hope person, all right. Someone say they might be on track for 2. That's nice. But don't worry. We have the multiple choice, and some of you may have paper 3 to do. That's marks to get. Right? Nice. So question 5, which starts off section B. State 2 sources of water pollution. And you see, this is section E. Yeah? This is man's impact on the environment. This is section E. And they never told you what type of water pollution it is, whether it's fresh water, salt water. So you could have picked any 2 sources. You could have picked oil tankers. You could have picked anything from oil pollution. You could have picked plastic. All right. You could have picked dumping. It was all for you. You could have picked oil rigs, oil tankers. However you saw it, persons throwing stuff in the rivers or waterways. That one was really, really open. And they just asked you for you could even have picked farmers, industries. It really was up to you. Yeah, it have so many options. Or we wouldn't even bother to put. Let's put oil tankers. Yeah. Put industries. Right? We could factories. Right? And we know persons dump in rivers and lakes and streams, etc. So any two would get you max. Some person is saying sewage, offshore oil rigs. Yes, yes, all of that is correct. All right. We have a diagram here of an aquatic ecosystem. Identify the process that results in algal bloom in figure 4. Look, they have algal bloom here. This is algae growing on top the waterway or the aquatic ecosystem. And you know that is because of eutrophication. Eutrophication is the name of that process. Right? So they just ask you to identify the process, take your 1 mark, and move on. Explain how the process identified results in the death of the fish. Well, as the algae increases, it prevents oxygen and sunlight from reaching further down. So the organisms beneath don't get any oxygen. So they suffocate or they are starved of oxygen. Hence, the fish will die. Right? And they give you quite a bit of lines to explain that. I don't think persons needed all these lines, but they give you freedom to express yourself. So nice of them. All right, table 3. Air pollutants from a city and a rural region. Outline 2 reasons why the percentage of carbon monoxide is so much higher in the city than in the rural region. Well, if we're talking about a city compared to a rural region, we automatically talking about urbanization or the development of an area. All right, so urbanization means more cars, factories, industries. They use more fossil fuel for energy generation. Remember, they said 2 things, right? They said 2 things. So we did give 2 things as well. So increased burning of fossil fuels. We have energy generation. We have more cars, more vehicles, more trucks. They may have trains, planes, etc. All right. So you expect that if a city is a city, it has a lot of urbanization. A rural region, plenty systems not developed as yet. Someone is asking a very well question. If you don't do anything on paper 2 and do extremely well on paper 1, can you still pass? You have to hit that total. But do know that paper 2 is worth 50% of your overall grade. Paper 2 is worth 50%. Paper 1 is only worth 30%. So the maximum you could get on the paper 1 is only 30% of your grade. Right? Paper 2, if you score total, you essentially pass. All right? Let's continue. Explain why the percentage of carbon monoxide is so much higher than the percentage of other pollutants in the rural area. And that is because in a rural area, you burn a lot of stuff. Burning, I want to write it this way. Burning stuff is a way of life in a rural area. You burn your rubbish, you burn the cuttings, you do slash and burn agriculture. This is what you do in a rural area without services. You burn a lot of stuff. Hence the carbon monoxide. Recommend 3 ways in which the high levels of pollution in the city can be reduced. Yeah, I think Everyone should know this one. We have the polluter pays principle. You could develop laws and regulations, fines and penalty. You could have tax incentives. You could have school programs. You could have competitions. You could have government initiatives. You could have non-governmental organization. You could have non-profit organizations. All these things are ways to help pollution come down in a city. Yeah. Once you explain it out properly, once you support your, not just a couple words, like how I put it, but you give some wording. That's why they give you some space to write, right? They didn't put all these lines just for you to write a couple words. Someone is saying reduce, reuse, recycle. Yes, that's a good program to put into place. You could start to have recycle, garbage collection. All of that is wonderful. All of that is wonderful, wonderful. So, final question. We would have done 5 of the 6 questions thus far, and this is the final question. And a surprising thing in this paper, no genetics. No genetics. They knew you all were prepared for it. So they said, let me not bring that genetics. So another question, this question, excretion from section B. Name one excretory product for each of the following organs. And they start off with the lungs. And you know the lungs as the excretory product being stale air or carbon dioxide. We have the skin. You know the skin is sweat. What is in sweat? Urea, salts, and trace amounts of urea. And the kidneys, what's the kidneys produces? Urea in the form of urine. Yeah? So, some easy marks there to get. Our body would have been doing these things for our whole life. So, some easy things to get. Feces is not going to get you a mark. Feces would be incorrect. State which blood vessel carries blood to the kidney, carries blood to the kidney, and that will be the renal artery. The renal artery. Renal is a fancy word for kidneys, and we know arteries run 2 organs, so the renal artery. They are asking you identify the structures in the kidney in which ultrafiltration and reabsorption take place. Ultrafiltration, you know that is with the glomerulus in the Bowman's capsule in the nephron, so we would put that in there. Bowman's is an apostrophe. Bowman's capsule. And reabsorption, the convoluted tubules. I put in first convoluted tubule. You might know it as the proximal convoluted tubule. You could also put the second convoluted tubule. You might know it as well also as the distal convoluted tubule. But convoluted tubule is the answer. All of these are in the nephron, in the kidney, in the urinary system. All right, so marks. So far, they're just asking us basically one-off answers, yeah? So 6 marks so far we would have gotten. All right, let's go on. Manuel and Sonia want to investigate the components of their urine. Each of them collects a urine sample and performs a Burette test and a Benedict's test on the individual sample. And the results are there in the table. Using the data from table 4, state the conclusion that can be drawn about Manuel's and Sonia's urine and suggest the diseases for which Manuel and Sonia are at risk. So we could just go through this table. Manuel, if he's doing the Burette test and it has no color change, he has no protein in his urine, and he get red for Benedict. We know that is testing for reducing sugars. So, and the thing is, it's red. It's not orange, it's not tendon, it's red. Red means there's plenty, right? So he has reducing sugars. Reducing sugars are like glucose, right? Simple sugar. And so he have some sugar in his urine, some problems there. Sonia has a pinkish color. It did not go quite to violet. It didn't go quite to violet, which is the color of urine testing, but pinkish still means slight protein problem, right? And the blue, well, the Benedict's reagent, the failings, is blue. So she basically had no change, so she has no reducing sugar. All right? So Manuel has a sugar problem, which indicates diabetes. And Sonia, you could have given multiple issues. So for Manuel, we show he have diabetes. And Sonia, she could have a urinary tract infection. She could have now started kidney problems, right? Because we are seeing protein in her urine. So this could be an indicator that her kidneys may be failing, and she now, started, because pinkish still kind of light, right? But the point is, she has urinary excretory problems. All right? So something along that line would get you the marks. 6 marks, if you put it correctly. Someone saying they put diabetes. Yes, diabetes. Manuel has diabetes. Someone say they put hypertension for Sonia. Hypertension, that might be a stretch, That might be a stretch. Chlamydia it actually has a test for chlamydia. You don't need to do Burette test for chlamydia. All right. Santo is badly injured at work and quickly experiences severe blood loss. He arrives at the emergency room with low blood pressure. Explain how Santo's body will respond in order to increase his blood pressure. First of all, Santo gets injured, so we understand that he is doing clotting. He was able to reach the emergency room, so he had help. Right? He had artificial help, because the reason he is experiencing blood loss is because some injury happened to him that is causing his blood, which is contained in closed blood vessels, to come out. So we know he would have artificial help from the doctors, the nurses, the medical practitioners in the emergency room. So they more want you to focus on what happens with his heart, what happens with his blood vessels. And you know that his blood vessels will do what? Would they widen? No, they will not. They will constrict. His blood vessels will constrict. His heartbeat will pick up, because remember, he has lost some blood, so it's less in his body. We have his spleen. Think of the spleen in this situation like a blood sac, a bag with some extra blood around, just in case you need it. So his spleen will kick into play as well. I don't know how much, it's just 3 marks, It's just 3 marks, so you may not need to say as much as I am saying, but if you do say it, you will get the marks. Do they mark for grammar? No, they do not. The only thing is spelling. If you spell a word and it's more than 2 letters wrong, then they have to assume it's some word, some other word that you are trying to spell. Yeah? But otherwise, they do not mark for grammar. So if you leave out a punctuation mark, it will not matter. All right, so this is the end of the 90 marks for the May-June 2024 Human and Social Biology Paper 2. How are we faring? How are we feeling after seeing these answers? It was a nice exam. That question 4 with the heart was a really nice question. Although the heart drawing itself may not have been the best drawing, but it was a fun paper. It was a fun paper. So Do remember to subscribe. Let me hear those ones or see those ones in the comments. But this is all that we have for the night. We hope that you enjoy doing this paper. Someone is saying they got 54. That's nice. That's still okay. That's thing, right? I hope other persons kept track of their marks. But this is it. We move on. Some persons have paper 3. You could subscribe to look out for those videos coming. And then for the paper 1, we will definitely be doing stuff for the paper 1. And you can always check out our other videos that we already have for the multiple choice. But for now, have a good night. Get some rest for your other exams.